This is the BiggerPockets podcast, show 246.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.
What's going on, everybody? This is Josh Dorkin, host of the BiggerPockets podcast, here with my co-host, Mr. Brandon Turner. What's going on, man?
Man, it's been a crazy couple weeks here.
Yeah.
And, things are good, though. Things are really good.
How's your pneumonia?
Man, pneumonia is getting better. I had a slight pneumonia. That was fun. And I sold my 24-unit apartment complex, so
yay!
That was a big deal. And I have 45 days or 40 days now to find something to put it in. So
1031. If you guys have a deal, send it to Brandon.
Thanks. Yeah, it's actually one of the reasons today I was really excited to bring on our guest today, because I've been kind of actively looking for a mobile home park, as you guys probably know. And this guy is one of the smartest mobile home park investors in the country. And he's a guy that I look up to a lot. So you'll hear more from Kevin later. But before we get to all of that, let's hear today's
I'm great, by the way.
Tip.
Thanks. Yeah. All right. Quick tip.
Josh, how are you doing?
Oh, hey, what's up, man?
Hey, man, how have you been? How's your pneumonia?
Oh, I'm spectacular.
Okay, tell me what's been new in your life. Here, sit down on the couch. Let's talk a little bit.
Oh, man.
Let's make Josh feel good.
You know, This is all about me. I got to take I took my girls to see Frozen, the pre-Broadway preview of Frozen, which was good, man.
Hey, let it go.
I'm not ashamed.
Let it go.
I like it.
Just don't hold it back. Don't hold it back anymore.
Yeah, I tried.
Let it go. Turn away and slam the door.
Can you shut up?
Here I stand. Okay. I don't know the words.
This guy is so.
Did you sing along though when everyone sings along to Let It Go, right?
No.
Everyone sings along.
No, but they did some really cool stuff on the show. This thing's going to be awesome on Broadway. It's going to be really great. So nice. That was good. And then this weekend we actually did BiggerPockets, and I personally we partook at the Children's Hospital of Colorado 40th anniversary gala fundraiser. We were there to help raise money for Children's Hospital, which is one of my favorite causes. Yep. Very meaningful to me, and we through the company and me personally had given a lot of money. So really important to me. They did a great job at the gala, and I encourage anyone who's looking for a place to partake with, part with their money. Part with their money. Give it to Children's Hospital. It's amazing.
Yeah, I went to the I Survive Real Estate fundraiser at the same time you were doing that fundraiser, pretty much. Anyway, I went to the one with the Norris Group down in Southern California with Amanda Hunt. Yeah, that one was supporting St. Jude's and Make-A-Wish. They should play this video beforehand about kids with cancer. I just bawled. I was sitting there in this room with all these investors, I was just crying because I'm now that I'm a parent, right? It's so different. I tear up right now just thinking about it. Parents who have to deal with that, that's so sad. Anyway, give your money to stuff that matters. I mean, that's why we're in real estate, is to generate matter. Yeah, generate money so we can help others. So help others.
Awesome.
All right.
Quick tip.
Anyway, quick tip. All right.
Quick tip.
Now we're on such a sad note. All right, quick tip today is this. If you're listening to this, at least when this episode comes out, there are about 90 days left in the year of 2017, which means if you've got some end of the year goals, you've got about 3 months. You know how long it takes to find a property and then put it through the financing? A couple months maybe, right? You can do it a little bit faster than that, but it might take a little bit of time. So it's time to double down on your goals and really work hard to achieve them. So that's the quick tip, is figure out what you're going to get done by the end of the year, and then set some really ambitious and specific plans of what you're going to do each week. And if you want to know more about that, we are doing a live webinar on that exact topic this coming week. Go to BiggerPockets.com/webinar. And if you're listening to this in the future and you want to watch a replay of that, if you're a pro member, go to the BiggerPockets Pro Replay Room, BiggerPockets.com/Pro Replay.
There you go. Awesome. Well, we have a great show ahead for you. This is show 246 of the BiggerPockets podcast. You can check out the show notes at BiggerPockets.com/show 246. And hey guys, really quickly, we love all the ratings and reviews that you guys have been giving us.
Yeah.
but we want more.
We do.
We
We're
really
greedy.
do. We do. We're greedy. So jump on iTunes if you haven't already. Maybe you listen to this on YouTube. Maybe you listen to it somewhere else. iTunes tends to be the largest audience of listeners. So jump on your iTunes and what is it? The podcast app. Yeah, and drop us a rating and review. Would really very much appreciate it on the BiggerPockets podcast. With that, let's get into today's show. Today's guest, Kevin Bupp, is a real estate investor. This guy's really cool. He starts as, I don't know, I think a self-described kind of failure in high school, and ended up going to community college. And from there, really just kind of fell into real estate. That was 19 years ago. It was fantastic story over the years. I mean, the guy's done multifamily, single family.
Hundreds of single family, hundreds of multifamily units.
Absolutely. And mobile home parks.
Now mobile home parks. And so we talk a lot about that.
And that is, that's really one of the foci of today's show was the mobile home park.
Wow, fancy
you
word.
like that?
Foci.
You like that? Well, I mean, First, we start with like the economy collapsing, right?
Like how to prevent against that again.
Yeah. Like the market, is a little toppy right now, and he
toppy. Wow, you in the words today.
Can I just say something without disruption? Thank you. So, he had suffered some serious pain in 2008 when the market was challenging and
challenging. That's like a 4-syllable word.
Crying out loud.
Okay, 3 syllables.
I'm literally being trolled by my own co-host. This is great. So
you lost
we dive in on that and really specifically about mobile home parks and the difference between that and trailer parks, because a lot of people are going to hear me say mobile home parks. They're like, oh, I'm going to tune out. But we're not talking trailer parks. We're actually talking about an asset class that is not just meth heads and drug addicts and things.
And this applies, like the stuff he talks about today, just take out the word mobile home park every time he says it and put in like apartment or what. A lot of the stuff you can apply it to other. Yeah. The direct mail conversation, unbelievable. You guys listen to that. Right. Yeah. How he finds deals. So good. At the end of this, towards the end of the podcast, he talks about that. Anyway, let's bring Kevin in. Joshua, would you like to invite Kevin onto the show?
All right, Kevin, welcome to the show, man. It's good to have you here.
Josh and Brandon, looking forward to it, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this should be a ton of fun. So, Kevin, I listened to your Mobile Home Park podcast, Mobile Home Park Investing podcast. Am I getting that title right? Mm-hmm. And so it's
yes.
I definitely, after listening to dozens and dozens and dozens of episodes of that, I'm like, I got to get this guy on the show. And we got to know each other a little bit. So I'm super excited about today's episode because this is like.
It's a trailer park.
We're talking about mobile home park, right? Or manufactured
trailer park.
Hey, mobile home park. Hey, we're a little bit more eloquent than the trailer parks out there.
Yes.
What's the difference?
There's classifications. Trailer parks are basically weekly rentals with transient people in them that are just like literally rundown shacks. And then there's mobile home parks, which are kind of like the middle of the level. And then there's manufactured housing communities. So manufactured housing communities would be.
So there's parks.
We're buying one right now.
And then there's communities.
That literally has 2-car garages attached
to
these homes. Yeah, like you. If we had to, we'd probably live in one. I'm not saying that either of us would, but we'd be okay with it. It's actually a really nice community with like flags outside of the doors and nice cars and things like that. So
I'm not disparaging. I just wanted before we get started. I see that you got some chutzpah, man. But like the whole thing is. We've got a show of people who are like mobile home park, trailer parks. What do I give a damn about a trailer park, right? And so let's just create that context right up front, right? This is about investing in not just like the bottom of the barrel where you're dealing with addicts and all sorts of difficult tenants. We're talking about communities, mobile home park, higher end, and the very highest end of the mobile home.
Yeah, I mean, yes, no, it's kind of like any other real estate asset class. I mean, apartment buildings, right? I mean, there are drug-ridden, rundown places that even if you were packing heat and you're like 350 and like bulked up, you still wouldn't go to at night, right?
Brandon
and then
just
there's like
sold
really
his
high-end A+. Yeah, so Brandon knows firsthand. So kind of same thing, right? I mean, or you can buy those decent places that are in really nice communities, but that are repositioned opportunities where you can take a D class and turn it into a C+ or a B-. that's kind of what we do. I mean, that is our strategy. That's the type of park that we typically invest in. We buy in a great market with great schools, great demand for affordable housing, but maybe the previous owner hasn't done a great job. They've let some of those transient people in, the people that we know there's good people out there waiting. Oh, we just got to get rid of the bad. And sometimes it's harder than others, but that's kind of our business. But our communities are full. I mean, we require that they have jobs. They got to prove income, and so we've got good, hardworking folks that like their kids to go to good schools and like to pay their bills on time. I mean, that's what we look for.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Well, let's get into that in a minute. I want to kind of take it from the beginning because that's what we usually do. So,
sure.
How'd you get going in this world? So you do mobile home parks and other stuff, but how'd you get started?
Yeah. I guess it goes back to really high school. I'm 38 today, and I got
today's your birthday, or like now you're 38?
No.
Okay.
I'm 38 this year.
Okay.
I'm 38.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna sing you a song.
Happy. Yeah.
Yeah. But I know everyone's got this story, but I really was a horrible high school student. I mean, I barely graduated high school and just didn't really have direction. I just wanted to have fun. And so I didn't go away to school. I went to a community college because I didn't want to waste my parents' money, and got a job bartending and just was having fun, not really with no direction in life whatsoever. And I got lucky at the age of 19 where I was introduced to a guy. He was actually dating my girlfriend's mom. He was like 20 years older than me. And long story short, we just struck up a good friendship. And I found out he was a real estate investor in Pennsylvania, where I was from. And I'm pretty sure that he saw like a misdirected child in me. And I saw it in him, this older guy that had been successful and had created success for himself. And so without me even knowing it, he kind of started taking me underneath his wing. He invited me to a 3-day boot camp. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ron LeGrand. I think he's still out there teaching in this world.
I remember that.
He teaches basically, fixing and flipping and wholesaling homes. And I got taken to a boot camp when I was 19 down in Philadelphia, 3-day boot camp, how to make money fixing and flipping homes. And that was the start of it. I literally went to that seminar, didn't know a thing about real estate. I never read a book. I mean, I didn't even know what it really meant for him to own properties and actually cash flow from them. And I went to this boot camp and just met some other people that I didn't think were any smarter than I was, and said, if they can do it, I can do it. I don't know what that means yet, but I can do this, and I'm going to put some time and effort into it. And basically with his mentee for a year. I mean, I followed him around. His name was Dave. I followed him around. I essentially did anything he wanted me to do for him. Met with contractors, helped him with paperwork. I did that in between my classes and attending bar at nighttime, and did it for about a year before I went out and bought my first property. And so that was really how it started. I bought a really rundown row home in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It was scary. It was that type of property that you should pack heat. I shouldn't have bought it. I wish he would have directed me away from it. I always give him crap about that. I say, why'd you let me buy that property? I mean, I made money, but it was scary. And it was a bad part of town, still a bad part of town. And that was the start of it. So I continued buying from that point on. Within a year, I quit bartending, quit going to school, did get my AA, but didn't finish out school, and figured I would put all my effort into real estate. And so this is all I've done since that point in time in my life, is invest in real estate full time. I've owned other businesses, but real estate's always been my core business. And I've owned hundreds of single family homes, hundreds of apartment doors. And for the past 5 years, our sole focus has been primarily mobile home parks. So
wow,
that's the long and short of it. That's a condensed version. 19
years.
Yeah, long time. There was a period of time after 2008. I got hammered in 2008, so it was a challenging time for me. I took about 3 years off, and I started a few other businesses that were not related whatsoever to real estate. I needed some breathing room, and I wanted to do something a little different and just not necessarily try to forget about real estate, but I got hammered pretty hard. So those 3 years, I did not invest in any real estate actively, but did jump back into it right around 2011. So, and I've been doing it ever since.
Nice. All right. So
yeah,
that's awesome. Crazy. Lots of stuff there. Lots to talk about. I want to talk about 08 again. We do it every 10, 20 shows. We kind of dive in on what happened then. I want to do it because every conversation I have with smart people today is market's crazy, market's hot, really hard to find a deal. Things are overpriced. Brandon, I know you were just at an event this weekend where some top economist was like, we're in a really precarious time. Things are, we're on the precipice. I hear a lot of that from really smart people. I feel it, and I feel other people who are very intelligent feeling it. And so what I'd love to hear from you is, what exactly went wrong for you in '08? And then to follow up, given the sentiment that I'm hearing and seeing, how can somebody who's concerned that we might be, at the end of the cycle and at the beginning of a downward one, can people kind of protect themselves?
Yeah, and I'll start by saying that every market's different, right? I mean, we all hear that saying, real estate's local. So, right, you're in Denver, Brand. I forget, you're out in Seattle somewhere, right?
Yep,
out in
South
Washington
Seattle.
State.
Yep.
And I'm in Florida. So all three of us are kind of in very cyclical markets, right? I mean, all three of us are in markets that go up pretty crazily, but also experienced a lot of that crash in 2007, 2008. But, what happened back then, I'm not going to say that if I go back again, I would have done anything much differently. I mean, knowing what I know today, I wouldn't have bought single family homes. I think that was one of the biggest downfalls for me. And there's nothing against single family homes. It was what I was taught initially. And so I was really good at it. And we had a pretty big system in place. And I had some partners that owned hundreds more properties than I even did. And we collectively worked together. And so we had a big machine. It's kind of like steering a cruise ship, right? Like changing course, it takes time. You got to pre-plan it. And it's just, we're like, well, things are going fine. We're going straight ahead. Let's just keep doing it. So single family homes, I would say that just from a 10,000 foot view, it was a very inefficient business model for us, just from the managerial standpoint. And we knew it. We just didn't make the change fast enough. But that wasn't really what killed us. And we were very particular about buying at highly discounted rates. I mean, we had that model. We would never pay more than 65 cents in a dollar. So we had a ton of equity on paper in our properties. And we really thought we were cash flow investors with our single family homes. We were positive cash flow, but it wasn't sufficient enough to where any type of correction, we would be able to survive if we saw a mass decline in either the rental rates or even the values, or a combination of the two, which is what happened in our portfolio. And so what really happened down here was, I guess, probably a little bit unique. Not that it didn't happen in other areas. Arizona is probably another state, in Nevada, where this similar scenario took place. But and at the same time that I own a lot of single family homes, I own apartment units as well. But the single families were really the thing. I think they were like the nail in the coffin. There was a lot of spec builders down here, down in Southwest Florida. I'm talking like building hundreds and thousands of rooftops, brand new homes for a population that wasn't really even coming. I mean, this is back in the day when a new home build would be flipped 3 or 4 times before it ended up in the last person's hands, right? Before it was even completed. I mean, I don't think things are as crazy today as they were back then, but that's what was happening. So what really happened to us, that number one, value started dropping really fast here. The market started tightening up a little bit. And we saw that happen. We saw the signs, and we started trying to sell. We were starting to discount. We tried to sell for 85 cents in a dollar, 80 cents in a dollar, 75 cents. And we were like chasing this decline that we just couldn't catch up to. And so simultaneously what happened is, a lot of these speculative builders that had these thousands of rooftops, brand new 322s, they weren't selling. I mean, they weren't selling anymore. There was no owner occupants moving into these things. And so a lot of them had construction loans. Most of them had construction loans. And so they started renting out these brand new homes because no one knew how long this correction was going to take. No one knew how dramatic this downturn was going to be. And so we went through a period of time, 8 to 12 months, where we were getting poached. I mean, these brand new home builders were literally renting out their units for sometimes less than what we were renting out, like a home that was 30 years old, right? 3-1, like you could move into a brand new 322 for the same price, maybe even less. And we had a mass exodus in our occupancy in a short period of time. And that combined with literally our equity went kaput. There were some areas where we lost more than 50% of the value. And then rental rates had to drop a little bit as well in order for anyone to survive. Landlords started trying to compete against these spec builders that were renting out these new homes. It was just an ugly, ugly cycle. And it got to the point where instead of having cash flow each month and having checks come in, we were writing checks to simply make up the difference of the debt service that we had. And it really became a strategic decision on our part. We knew that there's no way that we could survive for years that way. In fact, we'd be out of money very, very quickly, probably in less than a year, if we continued down that road. Number one, some of them were a lot of them were upside down, even though we were at 65% when we bought them. They're upside down, and they're negative cash flow. So it's like, what do you do, right?
Hey, So I know we're going to get to the second part of the question, but I mean, that's scary. If you're paying 65 cents on the dollar, I mean, it's hard to imagine
that you can't cash flow.
I mean, that kind of thing, should send shivers down the spine of any real estate investor. And so let's go to the
taxes
second.
and insurance down here play a big part of that as well. I mean, taxes and insurance in Florida are significant. This is shortly after 2004 was a bad hurricane year for us. Hurricane Charlie, I think it was Charlie, Ivan, and was Katrina that year? I can't remember, but Charlie hit us really hard down here. In that area, we own a lot of properties. And so insurance is just incredibly expensive, especially in these older structures that are, within 10 miles of a coastal area, which a lot of them are. And so insurance is expensive and taxes are expensive on top of it. So, it's a challenge to cash flow in some of these markets down here. And so what we looked back and said, we were really buying for appreciation. On our balance sheet, we looked phenomenal. And we were cash flowing, but we weren't really cash flow investors, not in the sense that I am today. Cash flow is number one priority today.
So for somebody who's not maybe in a better market, maybe in a safer market, less risky, less risk, less prone to get natural disasters, things like that. How does irrelevant actually? How does somebody protect against a market decline like that? Is there any way to do that, or is it just make sure you're not stretched too thin?
That's it. Make sure you're not stretched too thin. I mean, now when we buy mobile home parks, and we look at things a little differently through a much more conservative. And I thought I was conservative back then, which is the funny thing. But we always run our properties nowadays like we always do conservative projections, but we also, none of us know like capital market, what's going to happen to the capital markets in the next couple of years as far as interest rates are concerned, or what type of LTVs will be available in loans even. Like I see multifamily properties, like they're getting like 3 years interest only and 30 plus year amortizations. I mean, it's just crazy, 85% loan to values, and we don't know if that's going to be there. And so whenever we buy a property nowadays, we run it through like our own proprietary stress test. And so it's essentially a pro forma that has different scenarios involved, meaning like if it's got a 5-year balloon on that property, what happens if year 5 we go to get refinanced and it's 8% rates or 9% rates, or, we can't get any cash out at that point in time. It's just going to be a rate and term refi, meaning we can't get the capital back to our investors and we just got to continue holding on to this property. Like what happens then? And so we always run, I think that to answer your question, be incredibly conservative, but also think about worst case scenario and run your property through that model of what the worst case scenario is. Rents don't always go up like they are now. Like they don't always go up for 7 to 8, 9, 10 years forever. It's not an eternity thing. There's markets that can see a decline in rents. And I think there's going to be some markets that get overbuilt with apartments where there's going to be concessions being given by other apartment complexes, and hey, free TV over here, free 1 month rent. You know what I mean? Like that happens, and it's part of the cycle. So just be incredibly conservative. Don't always think that the road goes up. Sometimes the road goes stagnant or goes downhill.
Yeah, that's so true. And I like that idea, the stress test. I think, no matter what kind of investing you're in, if you're in mobile home parks or in your whatever, single families, whatever, stress test your deals. I'm doing that when I flip a house right now, which I don't flip very often, but when I do, I'm looking at what happens if the market drops between now and then 20%. Like, can I at least get out? That's also why most deals that I do, in fact, every deal I do is a rehab of some kind, a repositioning of some kind. So whether it's small or large, everything I want to build equity immediately. Now, granted, I could maybe just find a little bit better deals, but they're so hard to find right now. So what I'm looking for is anything that is, a value add opportunity. So that way, if the market does collapse 20, 30%, hopefully then I'll at least be broke even, and hopefully the cash flow is still going to be there. So again, stress test, I think that's a really, really good tip. So let's talk about then switching over to how did you make that transition to mobile home parks? I mean, we're going to do a segment here in a little bit. I got this section written down of common objections, because everyone's got objections to mobile home parks. I want to know you first.
Sure.
How did you go, I think we'll do a park?
Yeah, well, I mean, just to give you a little bit more of the background story. I mean, so at the same time we owned single family homes, we also had, I like to say, accidentally acquired a few hundred units of apartment doors. Okay. And I say accidentally because it wasn't really part of our business model. It just, a 50 unit would get sent to us. We'd look at it. We didn't even know how to properly analyze that apartment, that apartment property. But that part of our portfolio actually ended up being okay, but we had to sell at the bottom of the market, most of them. And we didn't sell at the right time, but that's because we were so strapped for cash. So anyway, I looked back at my business after all this had happened and stepped back and said, hey, what really went wrong and what should I have changed? And the one thing I identified was that, at least to me, and I'm not harping on single family homes because they can make great investments for some people, just not me. I felt like my business, the multifamily side of it, our apartment buildings didn't take as big of a hit, and they just they supported themselves We did buy them right. We didn't know really what we were doing in that space. I mean, we knew how to manage them, but we weren't buying or analyzing them as we should have. But we just got lucky, I think, in most cases. They were just much more efficient, much more scalable. I mean, it literally took the same amount of time to buy 500 apartment doors as it did to buy 120 single family homes. Actually, probably took more time to buy those single family homes. And so, looking forward, I said, I've got to do multifamily. I mean, like, I'm not getting back into the single family home game. Now I'm married. Now I've got kids. I'm going to have kids, and my life is different. I don't have all this time to rebuild all these single family homes because it takes forever to get a big portfolio going. And so I knew I was going to get back in the apartment space, or at least multifamily. But so I was out there talking. This is like 2010, 2011. I was talking to every single person that I could get in front of that was actively an investor in the multifamily space, and a big investor that owned at least a few hundred units, because the climate had changed, right? The landscape changed from 2006, 2007 era to 2011, right? Still a lot of distress in the market. Things were different. Real estate, a lot of people were still scared of it. And so I was talking to as many people as I could. And I got introduced to a gentleman that had been in the manufactured housing space for 30 years, from the financing side at first, but then also retired and then started buying communities himself because he had been involved in it for so long, and had lunch with him and literally left that lunch after about an hour and a half or so, basically telling myself, I'm going to give it a year. I'm going to focus on mobile home parks. And he piqued my interest with a lot of different things. I'm going to give this a year, like I was going to for multifamily, to buy a community and see how it went. And so that's what I did. He just piqued my interest with enough facts within this industry that I thought were unique enough. And I thought that there was a lot of opportunity there that I got excited. And there I went for a year. It took me about a year and a half to buy the first one. But that was it, man. Just at lunch with someone that was an operator that, made it sound like it was a better space to be in than the apartment space. And here we are today.
So let's talk about that. I mean,
really quick before we go there, you mentioned we a couple times. Who is we? It's not assuming you've got a partner.
Yeah, our company today is a little different than it was when I first bought my first couple mobile home parks. The first couple parks I purchased with an older partner that I had owned a lot of other property with in the past. We used a lot of our own money. We did have some private investors come in, but I mean, majority was our own money. And today our business structure is a little different. We've got a full-fledged syndication that we have together, a fund that we raise capital from passive investors. And so today, there's 3 principals in our group. It's myself and 2 other individuals that make up the principals of our company. And that does not include the guy that I own, a couple of the original mobile home parks with. So when I say we, I mean Sunrise Capital Investors is our company, and there's 3 principals in our organization.
Got it. Perfect.
All right. So what are those benefits? What did that guy tell you about mobile home parks that it piqued your interest? And what can you tell our audience? What are the benefits to them?
There's a lot of them, so I'll try to keep it somewhat short. But one of the big ones that I thought was interesting is he kind of asked what my complaints were about, the residential housing space. What were the complaints that if I could change, I would. And one of them is like turnover, right? I mean, in apartment space or single family rentals, you have turnover, and a lot of times it's, depending on the market, I mean, for the most part, it could be every 12 months, right? I mean, if not sooner than that. And so, when he started talking about manufactured housing and how they own their home, for the most part, we do own a lot of the trailers. It's just, that's not really our business model, but that comes with the territory. But in any event, majority of our homes in our parks, the residents own their own home, and they just rent a lot. And so he went on to explain that it's pretty expensive to move these homes. Once they get set in place, very rarely do they ever leave. And so, and if they did leave, there's really not many other places they can go that's any cheaper. So there wouldn't really be a strategic advantage for the home to ever leave that park. And so the turnover is incredibly low, being that they don't get moved out often. More so, they get sold. So if a resident wants to move, they have to sell their trailer, continue paying lot rent while it's for sale, and then the new person moves in and they continue paying lot rent. So that was one of the big ones that I liked, just low turnover. Another one would be the maintenance aspect of it. With an apartment or a single family home rental, you've got to maintain the plumbing, the AC, the roofs, all that stuff. If they own their own home, all we're maintaining in a mobile home park is the infrastructure, which is the water and the sewer lines, and the roads in the common areas. And if their AC breaks, if their roof starts leaking, if their skirting gets broken, whatever it might happen, they're replacing that and they're repairing it. So they're not calling us in the middle of the night, and they're not bothering us with those types of things that have a lot of variables involved with them. And for us, it's just the infrastructure, which is fairly easy to handle. Another big one is the returns. It's hard. I want to start by saying this. You can make great returns in any type of real estate if you buy it right. Okay, so I'll start by saying that. But with that being said, every market that we own mobile home parks in, if you compared apples to apples, if you took the same size apartment complex, same demographic, I would pretty much guarantee that you're going to find at least a 2% yield premium that you're going to get as far as returns are concerned on that mobile home park than on that apartment building. So the returns are significantly higher. We've got pretty high expectations, and on that, we don't have a property to date in our portfolio that doesn't meet or exceed 20% annual cash on cash returns. And that's real levered debt. That's not like 5% down. That's like legitimate 25 to 30% down type debt. And so the returns are just awesome. Again, got to buy it right. We look at a lot of stuff, Brandon, just like I know you're looking at this space. Yeah. Look at a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense, but there's still a lot of opportunity out there. And I think where the opportunity comes from, this is one of the last big reasons that he gave me, is that there's an aging population of the original owners and developers in the space. It's not that old of an industry. When you really look back at it, a majority of the parks that are out there today were built, between the 60s and the 80s, with the majority of them being in the 70s. And so it's not really an old industry at all. But a lot of those original developers are still in the space, meaning like they're like in their 70s and 80s and sometimes 90s now, and they still own these things. And so they're aging out of the assets. And it wasn't all that sexy of an asset class 15, 20 years ago. And so they were kind of like the redhead stepchild in the real estate space. Now that's changed. A lot of them haven't even realized that's changed. A lot of them haven't really run it like a business. They haven't consistently kept rents up to marketplace. They haven't infilled empty spaces. They just haven't run it like a business. And so there's been a lot of opportunities. In fact, I'd say, 80% of the parks that we own today, I'd say the average age of the seller was 65 plus years of age. And most of them had a tremendous amount of upside in rents and just operational efficiencies in general. And so I think there's still a lot of that out there, lots of mom and pop owners. And that represents a great opportunity for people like us that operate like a business. We're professional operators, and we're looking to get in and maximize the revenue and make it run as efficiently as possible. So those are just some of the top ones of why he piqued my interest, and I dug deeper to see if it was real, to see if there was really an opportunity there. So.
Great.
That's cool. Yeah. So one of the things that, I want to, now we talked about all the good things. I want to talk about some of the bad things. But one of the things I've noticed as I'm analyzing deals, I've made it clear, I think, on this podcast before that, I really love the idea of buying a mobile home park. Now, the reason I'm looking at it isn't so much, yes, it's all those reasons. But when people ask me, well, are mobile home parks is better than everything else? I say, well, not necessarily. But for me, it was about picking one thing and going with it. I knew I wanted to get something bigger. I knew that there's a lot of competition, and this is advice for everybody out there, whether you care about mobile homes or not. Like, I could have just chosen I wanted to buy a certain size multifamily apartment, right? I could have decided I want to do single family flipping. It doesn't really matter. I can find a millionaire in every single category of real estate in every single location in the country, right? Like, they're everywhere. But you'll never do anything if you don't pick something. So people who ask me all the time, why mobile home parks? I picked it. It kind of sounds like you did too. Like it sounds fun. It sounds good. It'll work. Pick it.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys. I've got to have focus. I know what my downfalls are, and it's me trying to spread myself too thin, chasing other shiny types of objects, which could be other real estate types, right? There's like a million and one ways, if not more, to make money in real estate. You just pick one. Yep. And give it some time. Don't give it a month or two. Give it a year at least, and just learn everything you can about it. Dive in deep and just commit to making it work. Because again, there's a million ways to make money. Just pick one and focus on it. Not that you can't expand later on, but until you actually become incredibly successful and the top of your market, whatever niche you choose. Yep. Don't worry about anything else.
Yeah, I love that advice. I had a conversation with a guy last week who was his model is to buy properties in Los Angeles and other rent controlled areas that have horrible returns, yet he's making a killing off of it. And as I talked to him, I realized I'm going to actually try to get him on the show here because his model was fascinating, and it was all predicated on buying rent controlled low, buying a 2 or 3 cap property in a rent controlled area. But that was his strategy, and he knew how to work just that strategy just right so that when people moved out, he could bump the rent up. And it was fascinating. But the point was he picked a niche that he just wanted to become the best at. Now he's the best at that one little niche.
Yep.
And so, so those people listening right now who have been listening to the show for 4 years now and saying, I just want, every week you're like, oh, that sounds fun. That's fun. Just pick something and do it. So
that's it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about
it is easy to kind of get distracted each week or each episode because we've got different topics and different people with really cool stories.
You guys are the blame for that.
I take some blame, mostly blame it on Brandon. But I had one more that I tend to hear a lot on the mobile home parks, which is they're one of the more recession-proof asset classes in the real estate space. Would you agree with that or disagree?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Then there was a study done too, and I think it went between 2007 and 2012. And I, for the life of me, I can't find that study, and I don't know who wrote it, who it was done by, but they had the lowest default rate in the lending space as far as loans are concerned between that time period, 2007, 2012. Mobile home parks did. So that's one fact. But I mean, really, if you just think about it from a logical standpoint, when people go through hard times, whether they're like a dual income household and one person lose a job or they get demoted and their income goes down, they tend to kind of move down the ranks, right? And so here's how I look at it. And I know that this isn't necessarily 100% exactly how it will work, but just follow me here for a minute. You got an A-class apartment building. That's all they're building nowadays, right? That's all they're building, these really high-end apartment complexes. Yep. They can't afford those. They move down to a B-plus or a B-grade apartment complex. Can't afford that because, whatever, the kid wants to go to a real expensive college and they're also not making as much money. So now they got to move to a C-grade apartment complex. After a C-grade, you start talking about D-grade, which is a place that we talked about scary. You got to pack heat. It's just not a fun place to live. You don't want to put your family there, right? You're putting them in harm's way. And so at that point in time, your next most affordable option is a manufactured housing community. And it's not necessarily that it's lower quality or, less desirable, but it definitely is. Like, you move down the ranks, mobile home parks across the country, like the average lot rent for a mobile home park is somewhere in the range of like $325 a month. And that's taking some really high markets and some also really low markets. Right in the middle, about $325 a month. And there is nowhere in this country that you can live in a safe environment and house your entire family for $325 a month. And if you can't afford to live there, then you're literally underneath a bridge or on your buddy's couch, right? I mean, like there's no other options at that point in time. And so I really believe it. And these aren't low-end communities. These aren't like rough places that are scary. They're in places that have good school districts. They have a better sense of community than most apartment complexes do. Get your own yard. And so I really think that it's becoming a more well-known choice for people that are renters. Like it's starting to get the stereotypical image of like trailer trash and all that. It's starting to go away a little bit in this industry. Yeah. It's making a big shift. And so do I think they're recession resistant or proof? I mean, proof probably not. I don't think anything is, but resistant, I think so, because affordable housing is in incredible high demand today. And if we go through a downturn, the demand only goes up, right? Yeah. Even in good times like when right now, we are not meeting the affordable housing demand in this country, and it's just not being built. I mean, it's not coming out of the ground. Everyone's building these really high-end A-class type communities. So I really think it is one of the most recession-resistant assets you can invest in. And that's why. I mean, it's just there's no other affordable place you can live and house your family and have a place of your own than in a mobile home park. So
yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. I got an RV this year, and we've been going around to RV parks and getting to experience RV parks, which I know a couple mobile home guys who are also doing RV parks, and it's very, very similar model, except one is more like a vacation rental, whereas the other one is long term. And it's a cool model, and like you said, the required maintenance on these things is really relatively low and easy. So yeah, I love it. It's great. It's great.
Yeah,
I mean, the RV park space, that we don't have in that business. We do have some RV spots in a few of our parks, but that is a different business model, a lot more management intensive because you have a lot of people coming and going. But yeah, that's a great demographic. I mean, majority of the people that are traveling in RVs, I mean, I think that's an expensive hobby to have. Yeah. And so the stability of that type of business when you're catering to that clientele, it's great. I mean, you're probably one of the younger people I know that I don't know how old you are, but you look a little. You're definitely probably below 40.
He's pushing
maybe
70.
Not, I don't know.
70. Hey, look at I like this guy. My favorite guest. I'm below 40. Yes.
I'm assuming when you go to these RV parks, most of your neighbors are probably 60 plus in age,
right?
They
are, but they're great. Oh my God,
there's
awesome.
nothing against it. I'm just saying, they're in fixed incomes. They work their entire lives. They've made good money. They've got pensions. They've got investments. Yeah, it's a great class to serve.
Yeah. And to go back to what we said earlier, I bet you we could find lots of examples of RV park owners who are millionaires because of that niche.
Oh yeah,
they picked that niche and they rocked it. Like again, like every single niche, you can find people that are multimillionaires from it.
Absolutely.
So,
again, in fact, now the tiny house movement's actually starting to merge its way into the RV parks, and we haven't done it yet.
We've seen
only
one.
because tiny houses are so damn expensive. Like the cost per square foot to build, like it's at least where we own parks, it's not a logical housing option. Maybe in like a trendy area like in Austin or Asheville, North Carolina, or something like that.
They just built.
Now I just saw one.
They just built one like eighth of a mile from our office, which is fascinating. It'd be interesting to see how the economics of the tiny houses over time, creating tiny house communities, would relate to that of a mobile home park. But they built one. They needed affordable housing, and so they built a tiny house park for homeless folks in the city of Denver, and it's great. It's close. It's clean. It looks great. I mean, the whole thing is wonderful, and they're doing this experiment right now. So we'll see. Hopefully it catches on, and we can deal with some of that lower income housing crisis that we're having here in the country.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right. Well, let's switch over to the objections. I mean, I want to actually, in this little segment of the show, we're just going to fire a bunch of objections at you. The things you've, I'm sure, heard when people say, when you say you do mobile home parks, they're like, oh, isn't it? Whatever. So we're going to fire those at you, see what you got to say. All right. So first one, I don't want to deal with low-income tenants.
Yeah, then don't.
Okay.
That's your choice of what kind of mobile home park you want to invest in.
Okay.
As is with any, if you're going to be a single family home investor that's going to have a rental, or an apartment investor that's going to have rentals and have, annual leases and such, you kind of get to choose what grade of asset you want to buy. And the same thing goes with mobile home parks. Like I said, what we buy, I would say that we make our money because we solve problems. So we'll buy parks that are in great locations, great school districts, people that, like the average median household income's $40,000+ a year, which isn't a lot, but I mean, they make money and they have jobs. There might be a bad element in that community, but we know that we can get it out, and there's plenty of good people to replace them. So my suggestion would be, if you don't want to deal with bad people at all, you can go buy stabilized property. But maybe if you're okay with just dealing with them temporarily, you can do what we do. We buy value add properties in great markets, kick the bad out and bring the good in. If you go buy a park in like the middle of the ghetto that's got weekly rentals, and you said you didn't want to deal with bad people, then that's your fault. Yeah. Just don't buy that type of property. So I think you really have a choice on what type of tenant base you want to deal with. I mean, at the end of the day, all of our residents in our parks are all highly respectable people. And we get the bad apple here and there. It happens anywhere. Even if you had a high-end apartment complex in Manhattan, you got the bad apples, right? So, the goal is just to have strict management processes and procedures in place, background screening. All of our people have to have jobs. They have to go through background checks. We don't let, felons in. We don't let people with, negative rental history. And if they've had an eviction in the past, forget about it. It's your job to filter out the bad. And so it's very easily doable. And so just what I say is don't buy one that way. Don't buy one with the bad people in there. If
only somebody had written a book on managing rental properties, you could probably apply that.
There you go. There you go.
Which you can get at BiggerPockets.com/store.
Or rental book.
Or rental book. And you can get that one with book on rental property investing. All right. So
next question.
One.
Next
Josh,
objection.
You want to take it?
I object.
Okay.
Mobile homes decline in value.
Ooh,
I can't do this.
They do. They do decline in value.
Whoa.
I mean, they're a depreciating asset just like a vehicle is, right? But that doesn't mean that, there's a couple different components of the business. There's, if you want to have rental trailers, and, like typically we get the same amount of rent, or we don't get much of a premium for rent. If we have let's say we have a 1985 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single wide. I'm going to give you actually a real example of a park in North Carolina we have. It rents for $650 a month. It's like on a rent to own type program. $650 a month. That includes lot rent and everything. We've got some brand new homes in that community as well that are 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, literally brand new, never lived in. And for those, we only get, I believe we get $735 a month. That includes, the lot rent and the payment. So we don't get much of a premium. So if you're going to be in the business and you're going to actually own these things, and you're right, they depreciate in value, but the rental value is still there. Like the rental value it's not going anywhere. As long they can be maintained just like a normal house can, meaning like they don't necessarily have a shelf life. Like they don't completely become obsolete when they're 30 years old. We've got some trailers in some of our parks that are like back from, I think the oldest one we have is like 1968, but it's been reconfigured. It's got a new roof on it. It's got a pitched roof. Its floor plan had been reconfigured probably 15 years ago. It's all electric upgrade, no gas. I mean, so you can make these things whatever you want them to be. But if we went to sell some of those, yeah, right. We'd get 1968 trailer. We'd get probably $2,000 for it, right? But it still gets $695 a month in rent in the market that it's in. So yeah, that doesn't really affect my business at all. As far as them depreciating in value, it's one of those things. It is what it is. Yeah, so I don't know how else to answer that other than it's not a big deal.
And your bread and butter isn't owning the homes themselves. I mean, that happens from time to time, but the bread and butter is owning the park and
Absolutely.
getting the lot rent, not dealing with somebody renting the unit itself.
We own, I don't know the exact number we own. We own over 100 of them, the trailers, but it's just because the parks that we purchased, they came with rental trailers. Like the previous owner thought it was a good business model to have rental units. He thought he made more money that way, which is not normally the case at all. And so we acquired them, but we always have a priority to sell those off and to turn either the existing renters into just lot renters, meaning they own the home, or, let them, move out, end their lease, whatever, and sell it to someone else that, again, is going to become because we know once they actually buy the home, they're going to be a long-term resident. Like the chances of them leaving after that is next to none, or they'll sell it to someone else and that person will continue paying lot rent. But, when we buy a park that's got rental trailers, we definitely don't pay a premium. We're still using like our old single family model. Like we are buying them at a fraction of what we know we can turn around and sell them for. So we don't care about making too much money on the homes if we have to sell them. And so even if we paid $5,000 for a trailer and it's really worth 10, someone came in, they gave us 8 for it, we would take it because we know that person's going to move in there. The lifetime value of that resident is going to well exceed that $2,000 that we even just lost on that trailer that we sold. So we're not in the business of losing money, but we're not in the business of making money from these trailers. So being the fact that they depreciate, it doesn't really make a difference as long as you don't overpay for them in the front end. So
that makes sense. Hey, really quick before we get back to the objections, what is your average vacancy in your parks?
Yeah, right now I think across the board we're running about 96%, and that would
4%.
Yeah, and that a few are higher, a few are slightly lower. It depends what stage of the turnaround they're in. Because right now we only have 2 parks that are currently in the repositioning stage that probably drop down that average a little bit, and then we've got multiple others that are stabilized and such. So yeah, but it fluctuates somewhere between probably like 93 to 97%, depending on what properties we've just acquired and where we're at with them.
There you go.
Cool.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right, next one. And this one, I actually met with my CPA, Amanda Hahn, just this past weekend. And we talked about this mobile home park. And she said, from a tax standpoint, this is my biggest problem with them. She said, you can't depreciate the cost of a mobile home park that's owned by tenants because it's not your home. It's all you can depreciate is the improvements to the land. So it eliminates a lot of the depreciation benefits of owning real estate. She said, you're not going to get the same tax benefits as owning something else.
No, you're right. That is true. I mean, there is an accelerated component to it. So it's 15 years versus, 27 and a half years for multifamily.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's an accelerated component. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you're depreciating, the infrastructure, the roads and the sewer lines and the water lines and, common areas, any kind of outbuildings or management offices and such. I mean, if you own some of the trailers, you can depreciate the trailers. But I mean, if you don't own the trailers, and you're right, you are limited in that capacity. So it just is what it is. It's one of those things. It is what it is.
All right.
Right on. Last objection, I guess. It's hard to get loans on a mobile home park.
It can be. Yeah, it can be. I would tell you that it's probably one of the asset classes that the banks, as far as their understanding across the board, either the banker gets it or they don't. And it can be frustrating depending on the type of park you're buying. I mean, especially if it's a massive turnaround type play, and if the owner hasn't kept good books and records, which is pretty common in the mom and pop space. It can be incredibly challenging to get financing unless you've got a relationship already or you've got a track record. So, but the good part of that, so there's a good positive flip side of that, and this is played true in most of the parks that we've purchased. You can a lot of times play that to your advantage depending on the seller and their situation, and we very commonly get owner financing because their books are horrific or they've kept like handwritten ledgers and you can't read, and so a lot of times we'll kind of, not coerce them, but, persuade them to consider owner financing. Number one, ends up being a much more of a benefit for them from a capital gain standpoint, but also a benefit for us because now we can get financing, and knowing that if any other buyer came along, they're going to run the same challenge as us if they try to buy it and the bank won't finance it. So once you get to a certain classification, or I guess quality of a mobile home park, or like I said, manufactured housing communities are like the really nice ones. There's plenty of programs out there. Fannie Mae will lend on them, lots of CMBS lenders, but typically loan amounts $2 million and above, and they've got to be higher quality park. So they can't necessarily be like parks that have a lot of rental units, parks that maybe have a lot of empty pads in them, or are struggling financially, or the not good records in place. So there's financing. It's just, if you want to compare it to the apartment space, I feel like banks are like throwing money in apartments today. Like you could literally say, well, I just quit Subway the other day and I'm about to buy a 50-unit property, and they would lend someone money on that property with no experience in that space. They would throw money on. They'd be competing for that business. In the mobile home park space, it's slightly different than that. So it is a little more challenge. But I think that where there's a challenge, there's always a benefit for people like us, right? If you're willing to stick your nose to the grindstone and figure it out where others, give up, then you can make a ton of money.
And that's one thing I love about that I kind of learned, I think, from you in your podcast was, there are all these objections people have, but that's what makes it an asset class that is really enticing, because most people, like when I talk about it, what do they say? Oh, I would never buy a trailer park. Great. Don't do
trailer
it.
Park.
Good, more for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, great. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like, I like to tell everyone it's in the real estate business, right? We're all real estate investors here. You make the most money being a real estate investor when you can master the art of being a problem solver.
Yeah, love it.
And so all these other problems that these other buyers find, like I can't get financing, can't do this, can't do that. I mean, we literally have a property right now that we're having a challenge in getting finance. It's probably the most challenging properties I've ever had. And I think it's where it's at. It's in South Carolina. The Carolinas, for some reason, the bankers are like 20 years behind the times, and like it's old. It's a good old boy network, and I'm not a good old boy, and I'm from the Northeast, and I'm a Yankee in their eyes, So like it's been an incredible challenge. Even it's a great park, it's got good financials, and so we're bringing a partner that lives in South Carolina, because they want to lend for someone that's in their state or that's got a local local presence there, and so we'll just bring someone else. And so again, we're going to overcome their objections by just bringing someone in locally and partnering with someone that we trust and know that can help us get this deal done. So again, just solving the problems, right? Finding solutions to the problems.
Well,
That's great.
And you mentioned a minute ago this idea of, a lot of owners don't keep good records. I want to speak to that for a second. What I've found now is I've been getting leads on mobile home parks for a few months now, right? And so here's the difference when you're analyzing a multifamily that gets sent to you, or a mobile home park that the owner calls you or whatever, right? It's like, I talk to these owners and I'm like, okay, well, how many units do you have? Like 75 or 80, no, maybe 90. And you're like, you don't even know how many units you have.
Yeah.
How can I run that? What's your average rent? Well, I don't know. I think a lot of them are around $400, but some of them are cheaper than that. Okay.
Yeah.
So like that's been the biggest problem for me, is that it doesn't, I talk about this on the webinars we do every week. You can analyze most deals in like 5 minutes on the BiggerPockets rental calculator or the flip calculator. That takes like 5 minutes to run the numbers. Maybe a few more if you got to go and actually dig the data up, like what's the taxes. Mobile home parks take me like an hour, 2 hours just to find the data. I mean, I'm not the fastest, but like if I'm trying to figure out like what are the taxes on this property and how does that county figure their taxes, like things like that, or how many units are there, or how many, what's the average lot rent? I can't get that information half the time from these owners. They just don't know. I don't know if you run into that, but man, I get really frustrated with that.
All the time. I mean, that's why for the most part, there's a couple of general rule of thumbs I like to use to come up with a really quick and dirty value. And so at least I can tell on the phone when I've got an owner like that doesn't have any information, or as long as he knows like how many lots are there, how many are rented, what the average rent for, is on the park, how many park owners he has, what are their rental rates, how many are occupied, how many are vacant, and also what the water and sewer situation is like. Is it a well and septic? Is it county or is it city? Who pays for it? If I can get those general information from them, not even like what the expenses of it, I can at least come up with a rough and dirty that should get me within 10 to 15% of what a realistic value is. Whether or not they're running it right or not, doesn't matter, but I could still come up pretty close. And so if I come up with a rough number that, tells me that it's probably somewhere near $1 million, and once I get to the part of the conversation where I ask them what they think it's worth and they say $3 million, I know we're really, really far apart. And so then I'll dig a little deeper and see if I can get them to tell me how they came up with that number, and then see if they'll provide supportive documentation to prove it. So, but normally I just try. I don't, because a lot of them are just, their expectations are out of this world. Yeah. Most of them just have no idea. They just think it's worth what it's worth because that's what it's worth.
Yep.
It's like, okay.
So what is a mobile home park worth then? I mean, is it valued similar to an apartment? Are we looking at some multiple?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the market that it's in, but I'd say on average, we're typically buying parks, and there's different variables here that might change that scenario, but somewhere between like a 9 and 10 cap is what we're buying parks on. But there have been instances where we've overpaid for a park in a big way, where we, in your eyes, we would have paid a 5 cap for it based on actuals, but we knew that the operational inefficiencies, we could change them very quickly. And the rents were also way below market. And, that park was up in Richmond, Virginia. And that probably is one of our best parks to date. And within 4 months, we effectively bought it at a 15 cap, after we did fix the minor problems that were there.
That's great.
So, we overpay a lot. I'd say technically we overpay a lot, and it's only because the books are so bad, and we know the problems that are there aren't really big problems to us, and we can fix them quickly.
Yeah, people ask me. Well, I was going to say, people ask me from time to time, like, what cap do you want to buy at? And I'm like, it's kind of irrelevant because I want a value add. So like, it doesn't really matter. It could be a 2 cap, but if I can fix it up to make it a 20 cap,
that's
great.
it.
Or, whatever.
I don't even use that. I don't even care what the cap rate is. I just really care. I mean, it really matters on the sale, right? So if you're like doing a pro forma and you want to try to, figure out what your total IRR is going to be after 5 or 10 years, then you need to apply a cap rate to it to try to determine, what that pie in the sky is going to be like 5 or 10 years from now. But other than that, cap rate really is irrelevant, and everyone's going to run it differently, and it just doesn't mean the same on the buying side.
So on that note, when you look at a property, so I know most apartment complex operators, when you buy an apartment complex, a large one, especially like syndicators, they are looking at that sale at the end as the primary way to make money, right? Their cash on cash is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5%, but they know that they can add $3 million in value over the course of 5 years, and then on average, once you take out the sale and all the proceeds, they're going to average 15%, right? Is that how you look at mobile home parks, or are you like, we're going to make it valuable whether we sell or not?
Yeah, so it goes back to the original conversation of like really investing for cash flow, right? Like real money that's spendable, that's in our pockets each and every month, or in our investors' pockets each and every month or every year. And so in our space, in fact, we have a syndication, and we provide projections and our investor perspectives, but we don't even mention IRR. I mean, it's there, but like it's definitely not our main marketing metric that we use. I mean, we use annualized cash on cash returns because that's real money. That's not projections out 5-10 years of what cap rates are going to look like at that point in time. And so for our current fund, like our based on conservative projections, it's 12% annualized cash on cash returns, and our IRRs. This is based on current properties we own, knowing how they operate, but also we buy the same types of properties in our fund that we own. Right, our model is very similar, 20% plus IRR over the whether it be a 5 and 10 year span that you look at it at. We'd be looking to push 20% overall. So, but annualized cash on cash returns that's the real number, and that's how we analyze them on the front end, and that's also with real debt. Like that's not saying, well, I got this for 5% down, and this is a 40% cash on cash return. Like that's great. But like, what's it really look like when the day comes when you actually got to put real debt on it? And you got to, So, cool. But yeah, cash on cash is it, man. That's the real metric that I think everyone should really live by as far as what the returns are going to look like. The apartment guys have been having a great run, and I hope they all continue to have a great run. But when you're looking out 5 years and you're projecting, selling on a 5.5 cap or a 6 cap, and that's the only way you're going to hit those IRR projections. I don't know, man. Like there's a certain point in time where it becomes incredibly risky, and it's just like game of hot potato. And I refuse to really play in that space. It's just not of interest to me, especially when there's only like 2 and 3 or 4% annualized cash on cash returns at play. So
Makes sense. All right, so I find a mobile home park. I find somebody who's willing to sell, and we'll ask about how we find those afterwards. But you buy value add parks. How do you add value if you don't own the homes? Are you like putting like putt ranges in the parks? Are you having like putting a little kitchen with
that's a good idea.
Somebody flipping burgers?
Wouldn't
that be awesome? Yeah, like have like a commissary would be amazing.
No, I love that idea. I have to run that past the team, man. No, I mean,
I want 12% of all proceeds generated from flipping burgers.
I love it. There's really a couple of big common ways. I mean, we always like to say like the low hanging fruit of upside with a park. And I'm going to give you an example of a park we're in contract with today. It's up in the Buffalo market. It's literally the nicest park that we'll own. It's the one with the 2-car garages I was telling you about. I mean, it's really nice. And the mom and pop that owns it, they've developed it, 35 years ago. It's a gorgeous community, and their rents are currently at $260. They just raised them $10. The market is anywhere from $465 to like $530. Whoa. And I make the joke with our partners that I'm scared that we're not going to be able to keep that park as nice as what it is when we take it over. Like it's just like, because we don't have to do a thing to it. I mean, it's well groomed and manicured. So that park there, and it's 122 lots, 120 are occupied. And so, I mean, it's, for all intents and purposes, it's full. I mean, it's full. All we have to do is raise rents. That's literally all we have to do in that park. We are overpaying for it a little bit, but we're going to we can hit our returns with it year one, not a problem. And that's just raising rents. Now, other ways to add value is a lot of times we'll buy parks that have they'll have maybe some vacant park-owned trailers. Maybe they're rental units that what happens commonly with these older mom and pops is they're just not really good at budgeting overall expenses or putting reserves aside. And so they start getting these rental units that the tenants tear them up, they get them back, and it's going to cost them $3,000 to renovate. And number one, they try to do it themselves, and then they get the second, and then they get the third, and they start stacking up. And before they know it, they've got like 8 vacant trailers, which is very common, sometimes way more than that. They're sitting there in disrepair, sometimes a couple of years. And so we won't pay really much of anything from the trailers, but we'll get them. We'll dump a couple of $1,000s into each one of them and turn around and, now we've got lot rental on top of any other profit that we might have made on the sale of that trailer. So that's another big way to add value. But operationally is probably one of the biggest. I mean, as far as like just normalizing the yearly operating expenses, is very common that you'll see mom and pops that they run their car through it. They run their health insurance, whatever gambling habits they have. I mean, like literally everything goes in their payroll. Like they're just bad at managing people. So maybe their payroll has got like 4 employees. Park we bought in Richmond, Virginia, small park, 52 spaces. They had 3 full-time people on payroll, plus a manager, plus a full-time handyman. So 5 guys. Where the one handyman should have been doing all the handyman work, he was basically delegating like a property manager. And I'm like, that's not going to work. So we literally shaved out like $65,000 off their payroll, off of the overall expenses of that park, literally just by firing 3 people and saying, do your job, man. Like you can't hire other people to do it for you. So like that's very common in this space to find them to where it should be a 40% expense ratio, but they're currently operating at 70%. And a lot of times it's very easy to change that and to bring it back down. So those are just some of the big ways of how we add value. I'd say that. And then the very last way to add value, which is probably the most difficult way to do it, is a lot of parks you'll find have empty lots. Like there would be empty lots. Maybe it's a 100 space park and only 70 of them have trailers on them. So you've got 30, sometimes fully developed pads that have hookups and everything, is getting trailers in there. Meaning like you're going to go buy used trailers or bring new ones in. It's very capital intensive, and it's also just takes time. It takes time to get them moved, to get them set up, to get them permitted, and to get them sold off. So that is probably the hardest way to capitalize on the upside, but there's still a good opportunity to do so.
Got it.
So you probably wouldn't buy like a park that was like, I mean, I kind of see them on like, LoopNet or whatever. They're like 90% vacant and they're like tremendous upside, just bring in that's a lot.
Yeah, that's challenging. I mean, now if it's it depends, it depends, because if it was in like Austin, Texas and I could buy it right, I know that if I put 90 trailers in there, they would move in a heartbeat. Like Austin, like it would get filled probably in a matter of a year. If it was in like middle of North Carolina somewhere, absolutely not, because
they're always in like the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. So, we own a park up in North Carolina now that we've owned for a couple of years, and we're just starting to capitalize on the vacant lots up there. It's got 52 vacant, fully developed pads. It's a 131 space community, and huge demand right near Raleigh. I mean, just a huge demand for housing, and we're at the point now where literally we can't. If we get a unit back, I think we still own like 13 units in there. If we get it back, it sells like before it's even like we haven't even renovated like the last 3, because the guy's like, I'll take it as is. I'll pay you cash. Here you go. So we know that we can move new units when we bring them in. We'll have no problem, occupying them in that marketplace. So that one, it didn't scare me to buy, that many empty pads that were there. So
is there a size of park that's too small? Like, 10 lots, 20 lots, or is there like an optimal number?
Yeah, I mean, the optimal number that I would say for most people, if you're going to get started, is between probably 30 and 40 lots. The smallest park we own is 35. It's in a great market, really high lot rents. But really, what you want to consider is the ability for you for that park to create enough revenue, generate enough revenue that you can afford to pay an on-site manager. Unless you're going to be the guy, unless you want to go live in the park and actually run it day to day, you want to be able to afford to pay somebody. And that means giving them free lot rent and probably paying them a small salary to do that. And so, obviously, the larger the park, the more opportunity you'll have to be able to pay someone a reasonable amount to oversee the daily operations. Also, on top of that, if you're looking at a park, let's say that it's a smaller park, let's say it's 20 spaces, and let's say it's on septic systems or a well or whatever. And let's say one of the septics fails in that park and you got to put a new one in. It's going to cost you $4,000 to put a whole new septic tank and leach field in. That $4,000 over that small of a park, I mean, that's going to crush your revenue. That's going to have a big impact on your bottom line for the year. Whereas if it was a 60 space park, probably not that big of a deal, right? To have a $4,000 unexpected capital expense. And so some other considerations are how far away you are from it. Travel expenses can eat up a lot of a smaller park's revenue for the year. I mean, if you live in California and you bought a park in South Dakota, that we're talking about, and you have to, spend $500 for for airfare and 2 nights, 3 nights in a hotel, and it's a small park. That's a big percentage, proportionally speaking, of your revenue for the year. Whereas 100 Space Park, it's already, it's just a drop in the hat. It's not that big of a deal. So that's really, if it's right next to your house in your same neighborhood, maybe you can manage it yourself. Maybe a 10 or 20 space park would be fine. I'm not saying that you shouldn't you shouldn't look at anything smaller, but you just got to take those other items into consideration.
That's really good advice. All right, so last question before we go to the fire round. How do you find mobile home parks? And I know that's a loaded question. So yeah. So, that's one thing that we're really, really good at. We pride ourselves on our ability to find great deals. And, the common way that a lot of people, like just with any other type of real estate, is brokers. There's industry-related brokers in this niche. That's all they specialize in. I will tell you that's probably the more challenging way, especially in the part of the real estate cycle we're in. You pretty much have to fight to get attention because obviously they've got their buyers list and which they should be selling to their past clients that have bought from them before that they know can execute. And so getting on their radar and for them to, seriously pass you a real good deal, probably slim to none chance that's going to happen. They'll give you like the leftover crumbs, which probably aren't that good of a deal. That's why their real buyers didn't buy it. And so we like to take the more roundabout approach. I don't like begging for deals. And so we've kind of created our own, deal flow or funnel. And, we've got our own database that we've developed in multiple different markets across the country, and we just do direct marketing. And we do a lot of cold calling. We do a lot of direct mail. And, that is where we have found, I'm trying to think here, I guess probably about 85% of the deals that we own today and that we have in contract even have been a direct contact to an owner. And that works for us. Deal cycles are a little bit longer there because a lot of these people weren't ready to sell. Like when we contacted them, a lot of these times I think our longest deal cycle to date is 2.5 years. From the first time we've got a response on a direct mail to the time we close, like 2.5 years, because they're not ready to sell. Got to build a relationship. A lot of times it's emotional with these people. They've owned it for a long time. They want to sell to someone they like. Yep. And so we've gotten really good at just developing rapport and establishing relationships with operators, knowing that we're in the business, knowing that when the day comes, they'll think of us. And so we stay in continual contact with them. Christmas cards, Thanksgiving cards, Happy 4th of July cards, just any reason to stay in front of them so that when the time comes, it's all timing, right? Like we want to be in front of them when they either decide they want to sell or need to sell due to other reasons. And we want them to think of us when that time comes. So that's what we do. That's how we do it. And brokers work out well. It's tough in this market. That's all. So we want good deals. We don't want broker deals like highest and best offer, someone's going to overpay for it. I'm not going to.
I love that mail strategy for any part of the real estate business. I think most people, when they think about mailing, they think about yellow mail or postcards. But the idea of just staying in front of somebody's face with holiday cards, I think is brilliant.
Yeah, anything. Now there's a couple cool tools out there. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Sly Broadcast. No. That's another tool we're starting to implement in our business.
Is that the one where you call them and then it goes straight to their voicemail instead of?
So you can pre-program a message, a voicemail, and it drops it on their cell phone. So if you're ever out of area and you're like, how did I miss that call? Like I just got a voicemail. It literally does that to them. So they think that they literally just missed your call and they got a voicemail there and it's you saying, hey, this is just Kevin just checking in. Haven't talked to you in a while. Would love to speak with you about your park whenever you have a moment. Give me a shout.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So and you can literally upload 1,000 phone numbers and send that same message to 1,000 different people all at once. So it makes it a lot more readily accessible to stay in contact via phone as well. But we got our CRM and we kind of prioritize who our hot ones are, the ones that we know they're making a decision soon. And so we need to put a little bit more emphasis on this guy before someone else comes along. So that's how it works for us, man. I think the problem that a lot of people have with direct mail that get into it, they do one mailer and they don't get a deal out of it and then they stop doing it. Whereas I promise you, the momentum the momentum doesn't get built until you've done 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mailing campaigns. And then you'll start 3 years down the road, you'll be like, so-and-so will call you off this mailer you sent them 3 years ago. And I held on to this. It's in my drawer. It's you got to get the momentum going. And you've got to stay consistent with it and just make sure that your message gets to them on the right day. It's kind of tire companies do this and so do credit card companies, right? They send us this stuff all the time. Yep. And maybe, I don't know, when you need new tires once every 4 years or 5 years, and then maybe you'll look at that flyer that comes like 3 times a week.
Yep.
So
that's so true.
Anyway.
It's so true. In fact, I just signed up for a credit card a few months ago. I never do those credit card offers. I mean, I've gotten 100 of them in the past few years, but I finally needed a card. I needed it for a business reason, and it came in the mail, and I was like, oh, well, this is good miles. Like, give me. So I signed up for it. Like, it was exactly like it hit me at the exact moment.
Yeah,
that's when direct mail works.
That's what you got to do, man. Same with the phone calls. I mean, that deal I was thinking about North Carolina with the 131 lots. That was a cold call, and we got the guy at the right time. He had just taken this property back. He had owner financed it like 3 years prior, and just gone through a long suit. He was getting older. His daughter didn't want to deal with it anymore. I mean, the timing couldn't have been better. And we got really lucky because that was the first call we made to that guy, and he's like, I was just talking to my daughter earlier about this today. Yeah, we're definitely open to having a discussion. It took a year for us to close it, but the timing was right. The time was right on that one. Yeah.
I love it. All right, well, let's shift gears here. We're going to talk about more mobile home park questions here, but this is in the segment that we call our Fire Round.
It's time for the Fire Round.
All right, these are the short questions that come direct from the BiggerPockets forums, which of course our users can go get to by going to biggerpockets.com/forums. However, today's Fire Round is a little bit different. These are all questions that came from selfishly greedy Brandon Turner here, because these are my biggest questions.
I'm like, these look
these are
different.
these are the questions that I have about buying my next mobile home park. So, and that we did not cover today. Because I could go post all these in the forums, but I'm just going to ask
everybody
them right
listening. Here's what we're going to do.
All right, what are we going to do?
Send me any of your leads for mobile home parks.
And then Josh
send them
wholesale
to Josh.
Yeah,
I will wholesale.
Send them to me. Come on, I'll make it happen.
And just that would be so great.
Yeah, that would be so great. You could hold that over us, Josh. He would love that. Josh loves the power.
What? No, we'll partner. Send me your deals. You got a good mobile home park, send it to me. I'll send it to these guys. We'll all get in together.
There we go. I like
it. Guys are going to bring it to me anyway, so just cut out the middleman and bring it right to me.
Wow, it's like 3 sharks circling around.
This is great. All right, number one. Should I buy a park with septic and well, or only city and sewer for my first deal?
You should be open-minded to it. Just do your due diligence. I mean, make sure that you get third-party professionals in there to inspect them. We're buying 2 right now that are on septic and wells, and there's a ton of septics in both these parks that are bigger parks. And it's costing a lot of money to do the inspections, but it's worth it because we've uncovered a few things, and we've got both sellers spending a good bit of money fixing repairs and doing things that were deferred over a period of time. So just do your due diligence. Yes, they're a little bit more dangerous. You should know what your backup plan is. Should they, there's a lot of things you got to find out. Like if it fails, what happens? Can I put a new septic in? There's some areas that have regulatory challenges in place that you wouldn't even be able to put a new septic in. You might lose that lot. Or if you had to put new septic in, is there enough ground area, virgin soil based on current zoning? Because you're going to have to basically, you're going to have to conform to current zoning now. Because back when it was built, maybe you needed 3,000 square feet of empty space to put a septic in. Now you might need 6. So is there enough room to do it? So lots of considerations like that you need to think about when there's private utilities involved. And how far away is public water and sewer? Should the last resort be to connect to it? If it's 5 miles away, you might not have a backup plan. So you got to think about those things.
Yeah, right on. All right, how do I convert a tenant rented home to a tenant owned home? You talked about that. How do you actually make that happen?
Well, I mean, it's kind of as simple or as hard as what it sounds in terms of, you've got renters and then you've got people that truly want to be a homeowner. And then you have renters that think they want to be a homeowner, but probably really not. Like, it sounds like a great dream for them. Wasn't there a dream you just put in their head? And really at the end of the day, they're still renters. So what you need to do is you need to be able to determine which category they fit in. Are they just renters? If so, even if you do like a rent to own to them, you're still in a rental. It's like you're probably going to get it back. They're not going to make it through the entire program. So your goal is to basically be able to determine who the real home buyer is. And if that means that you have a renter in there now and you want to sell that home, then if you've got a yearly lease, you wait until the lease ends and do a non-renewal. If there is just a month in place, you can do a non-renewal right away, give them the adequate notice based on that state, and then get the home ready for sale. And then, whether you want to sell it for cash to an end buyer or do like a rent to own type strategy, both are very common. That's what you do. And, we've taken over entire communities. One in question is one in Alabama. It had 70, I think, or 68 space park, but it came with 45 homes. That was all that was in there. And the biggest conversion I've ever done, and we're about halfway through it now. And I would tell you that we had to do more non-renewals of leases than we anticipated. We thought we'd be able to convert more than what we did of the existing renters. But at the end of the day, the renters were just renters, and most of them just need to go. And so sometimes you have to kind of plan for a worst case scenario of like a couple months of down cash flow. Don't expect that every renter wants to own a home, because it's what I found is 80% of them, they're renting because they don't like fixing anything, and they don't want any additional responsibility above and beyond what they already have.
So question number 3, would you buy an all park owned home park? So every property is a rental. A 42 unit in Florida.
Wow, this is very specific.
This is very specific. So this is a deal that came
What's
across.
the address, Brandon?
Yeah, I might give it. No, this came across my desk last week. You probably saw it, I'm sure, maybe. And it was like a 40-some unit down in Florida, where the hurricane just went through, but it didn't get hit by the hurricane, and supposedly nothing bad. But it's all park owned. And so I look at it and I'm like, the numbers make sense. 20% cash on cash return as a rental, it makes perfect sense. But then if I start piecing them out as, selling them off, now the rent drops a whole bunch. It doesn't make as much sense anymore, right?
Yeah, you shouldn't be capitalizing the rental portion of the homes because, again, you got a depreciating asset there. And if you actually capitalize that rental portion and applied an actual value to it, a multiple to it, you're going to find that it's going to be way higher than what that damn trailer is really worth. Yeah. Seriously, like you're probably really paying like $20,000 per each of those trailers, and they're probably older homes. If they're in Florida, they're probably older, and if they've been rentals a long time, they're probably not worth more than $1,000 a pop, or maybe some are worth a little bit more than that. But so you just want to be careful. Like it's really two different businesses. You really want to look at the lot rental income of the park and just really pay more what I like to call like a Kelley Blue Book value or whatever you want to call it for the homes themselves. Like, what should you be paying for the homes, knowing that you're not going to lose money when you turn around and sell? Like, what can you just get in and out of them? Don't worry about profiting from that side of the business, but definitely do not capitalize the rental side of that park. And, some other considerations, if you wanted to buy it, if you still were considering it, I would start looking at the age of the homes, how many bedrooms and bathrooms, what size are they, what kind of demographic are you be catering to? Are they all like 1 and 2 bedroom homes that are smaller? Like, do they sit on small lots that are really close together and dense? Meaning, like, if you wanted to bring in some bigger, newer model homes, they're not going to fit, or you're going to end up using 2 spaces instead of just 1. So, I mean, lots of considerations that you have to look at with that park. And then also, who's your end buyer? I can promise you that larger operators and owners do not like that model, the rental model, and so your exit strategy might be. It might be halted a little bit, and your end buyer is going to be probably someone that you're going to have to offer financing to, or a smaller time local investor. A lot of banks don't like it either. They don't like the rental homes. They just don't want to have involvement in it. Some might, but most don't. Most don't.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so be careful with something like that. Not that you can't make money. Yeah, just be careful
with that one.
Yeah. I'm being careful.
All right. Last question of the fire round, and we are running slightly long, so we're going to try and make this one quick. How do you build relationships with owners or sellers? Got any tips?
You be nice to them. No. Yeah, no. I mean, obviously, like just with anything. I mean, this is like sales 101. I mean, right? Find commonalities, find things in common. Compliments go a long way. Complimenting their park, complimenting their, the beautiful community they've run over these years. I mean, really, I keep it very lighthearted, but just find something that we have in common, and to stick with it. And I tell you that the biggest thing for me is the CRM. I document every conversation I have, and I make very specific notes in there about what we talked about, because now if you had hundreds of people you've talked to, you forget. And so that way I can pick back up on that, because they don't forget, but I would forget having that many conversations. So I can call back and be like, how'd the fishing go with your last time we talked, you were going to go fishing with your son. I mean, did you guys catch anything? And I know you've probably been a million times since, but you were just mentioning how excited you were to take that new John boat out that you got. How'd that go? Just little stuff like that.
My dentist does that every time I go to the dentist. They're like, yeah, how was your trip to Disney World? And I'm like, you remembered. No, they didn't. They write that down in their little CRM or their folder or whatever.
Awesome.
Yeah, but it makes every time I'm like, wow, they think about me. So I think that's. By the way, so the last question I was going to ask was CRM. What do you use? Podio?
No, we actually don't. We're trying to transition into Podio right now so that we can have a more inclusive system that runs a little bit more of our back end. But we're still probably months away from having that fully realized. So we're very basic. We use Insightly. I mean, because what we use it for right now is it's just pretty basic in nature, but we do need to beef it up, and Podio is going to be the route that we go. Yeah, but Insightly, cool. I think we have you can get a free version of it. I think we have I don't know, 5 or 6 team members on it or something like that. So maybe it's $30 or $40 a month.
Very cool.
Nice.
Very cool.
But
I like
awesome.
It does its job. It does its job. You know what I mean? Like any CRM, there's a million CRM. So if you're just going to use it for just basic follow-up, Podio is pretty elaborate in order to customize it to your needs. And so you don't get stuck in the weeds would be my advice. If you're just getting in there, you need some basic follow-up techniques and software. Go get a free version of Insightly, or I don't know, there's a bunch of other ones out there that are probably just as good, if not better.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. Well, let's transition to the very last segment of the show, and then we'll get everyone out of here. The last segment, which we lovingly refer to as our Famous Four. All right. Let's get to the Famous Four. These are the same 4 questions we ask every guest every week, and we're going to throw them at you. Number 1, what is your favorite real estate-related book?
I've got a ton of them, and so I knew this question was going to come, but it's what every real estate investor needs to know about cash flow by Frank Gallinelli. And it's a dry read. It's not exciting. It's not going to keep you up at night because you can't wait to finish the next chapter. But it's all the common sense that you need to understand all the key measurement tools and metrics that are used in commercial real estate analysis. It's here, and it's actually well written. It could be way drier. He does a pretty good job about just making it easy read. So I'd say that one, hands down. Probably had one of the largest impacts on my life many, many years ago when I first read it.
Cool. And we had Frank on our podcast 4.5 years ago, back on episode number 4. So
yeah, he was one of the first.
Yeah, I think I had him on 3 years ago. A long time ago.
It's been a while. Check those out. Frank, good guy.
I like Frank. Yeah, he's a good guy. I mean, I think he still teaches at Columbia University. The guy's still in the business. He has a great software program out there, and he knows his stuff.
That he does.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, favorite business book.
And again, I got a million of those. I wouldn't ever say I have a favorite, but this is one that I read. It's probably about 1.5 years ago that I read it. It's called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. Phenomenal book for those that haven't read it. Again, I got a whole bookshelf of stuff that I love that would go up there in my top 5 list. But this is one that I was looking over there and I'm like, that's a great book. I've read it probably 3 times and it's phenomenal. So
cool. I've not heard of that one. I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah. What do you do for fun when you're not hanging out at the trailer park?
Yeah, that's it, man. With my trailer park buddies, right? I've got a young family. I've got a lovely wife and 2 kids that I spend a ton of time with. But as far as hobbies, I'm a big cyclist, so I do a lot of bike riding. So I do long distance bike tours and hundreds of miles here and there, hundreds of miles there, all over the place. So that's one of my big hobbies that takes up a lot of my free time aside from family and business.
Awesome.
Cool. All right, what do you think, last question from me, what do you think sets apart successful investors from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
I think actually the answer to the question is part of the actual question is giving up prematurely and not pushing through those points that looks like failure. That's really just a roadblock or an obstacle that you need to work through. Everyone goes through challenges in their business, whether it's in the very beginning, in the middle, at the end, whatever, man. It's just, it goes back to the whole problem solver thing. It's you make money to be a problem solver. You got a problem, get a solution. Don't harp on it. Don't give up over it. Just find a solution because there is one. I don't know what it is, but you figure that out, right? And that's how you push forward. So I think that's it, man. Just being able to persevere, I think, is the biggest thing. Just knowing that there's tomorrow, and tomorrow probably will provide the answer if you don't give up today.
Ooh, I like that.
That's great. Yeah. Very, very good. All right, last question before we let you go. Where can people find more about you? How can they link up with you?
Yeah, the 2 best places is my personal website, kevinbupp.com. They can get links to all my different podcasts. I do 2 weekly podcast shows, one on commercial real estate, one on mobile home park investing. And then our company website, if they want to read more about us there and learn about what we do in the mobile home park space, is sunrisecapitalinvestors.com. So those are the 2 best ways to find out more about me and connect.
Very cool. And I definitely recommend the podcast. Both of them actually are fantastic. So keep it up.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, Kevin. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's been a lot of fun, man. I've been looking forward to it. So thanks a lot.
Sweet.
Awesome. All right, guys. That was Kevin Bupp. Big thanks to Kevin. That was a cool show. Obviously,
so cool.
Brandon was highly invested in the results of that show.
I was, because I got like I said, I got 40 days to find something or whatever it is from today. So I'm looking, but every time we talk to somebody on the show here, we've done a few others, brought them on the show here, talk about mobile home parks.
Are we going to do this the next 6 shows? Are we going to?
We have a lot of mobile home. No, we don't. But every show, Every show is selfish, right? In some regard. But I mean, like every time we bring on a mobile home park investor on the show, I leave those interviews going, I love that. That's why I chose that niche. That's why I want to buy one. So I've got 90 days to the end of the year, 40 some to identify and the rest to buy, because that was one of my goals I set in January 1st of last year. I wrote down, I will buy a 50 unit plus mobile home park this year. So
make it happen.
I'm telling everyone now I'm going to feel stupid if I don't get it. So I got to do it.
Yeah.
All right. What's your end of year goal, Josh?
You should just feel stupid by virtue of who you are, but you know.
I just feel like when you go through life in a continual state of feeling stupid, like you're never surprised when things get more stupid. Right.
If you've got a standard that is so low,
if you just keep
anything that happens is a win.
It's a win. I'm always winning. It's really good.
It's great.
Hey, what's your goal? Got any fun end of year goals?
Honestly, I haven't really thought about it. I haven't really thought about it at all.
Well, next week I'm going to ask you that question, which we're recording tomorrow. Next week's show.
That's great. Way to give me some time.
Yeah, think about that. End of year goals, and we're going to find out what Josh Dorkin wants to do.
Hey, all right, guys. Well, listen. Thank you so much for listening. Great show, Brandon. Once again, looking forward to next week. We're getting close to 250.
Yeah, big old 250. We all know what that means.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Pat on the back.
Pat on the back. A quarter of 1,000. I was gonna say 100, but that's stupid. Yeah.
I'm surprised we've made it this long, Brandon.
Me too. Well, thank you. I'm getting out of here. I got to go find myself a park.
All right. Hey, listen. Great chatting. You guys, thank you for listening. This is show 246 of the BiggerPockets podcast. Until next time, I'm Josh Dorkin, signing off.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.
It's time for the Random 5. All right, one more segment of the show which we'd like to throw in here at the end. It's called our Random 6, and we're just going to throw these at you. Number 1. These are completely random, non-real estate, just to get to know you more.
All right.
What are you freakishly good at?
Riding my bike.
All right.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right. If you can master any instrument on earth, what would it be?
The guitar. Acoustic guitar, man.
Josh just sneezed into the microphone.
Yeah, what's happening?
Yeah, now
here?
he's like
wish I could master that.
Did that come through?
It came through a little bit. There you go.
Do we want to redo that?
No, I was good.
I couldn't control myself. I muted it just late.
Not in time. Anyway,
man,
guitar.
It's all about being original.
There you go. You want to learn the guitar.
Man, guitar would be that instrument. Yeah.
Acoustic or electric?
It's acoustic.
All right.
Sure.
You and I, you're gonna help me buy this mobile home park, and I'm gonna teach you how to play acoustic guitar. That's our deal.
Yeah, you play guitar. My parents forced me into playing the trumpet when I was a kid. I'm like, I don't want to play the trumpet.
I played the trumpet.
Grandfather has one. Take this. You're playing it. We're not buying you a guitar. I'm like, okay.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, we're gonna do some jamming after I got my park here. So, all right.
Well, I don't know how to play the trumpet anymore. Just so you know, like I quit playing in like 11th grade, so I don't know.
I'll bring 2 guitars. We'll have fun. It'll be great. Number 3. What was your very, very first job?
Ooh, a paper boy. I mean, like real job where I actually had like a paycheck while I was a paper boy when I was 12 years old. So I had a paper out my neighborhood.
That's very cliche.
But is that a real job? I mean, is that a real job? That was a paycheck associated with it. Okay.
It is. I'd call it that. Cool.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Next question. What are you going to be for Halloween?
I think Kevin Bupp. I don't know. Then you have kids. I don't know. I don't know. Like, am I that bad dad that doesn't dress up? I dress my kids up, but I don't dress myself up. So.
Well, you're no fun. Next question.
Unless you guys guilt me into being something else. Gosh, hang my head low.
I want to know, since Josh came up with that question. Josh, what are you going to be for Halloween?
My children are one is an Ewok, one is Princess Leia, and one is what's the new girl? I forget her name in Star Wars, and I believe I'm going to be Han Solo.
I was thinking Yoda, for the height.
Looks like you're a better man than I guess I better step up my game a little bit.
You better step it up, man. Come on.
All right. Next question. How long before your flight do you arrive at the airport?
About 45 minutes to an hour. If I have kids, more than that, but if it's by myself, I'm normally I'm a light packer. I carry them. I don't check any bags, so I'm pretty 45 minutes or so.
All right.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
What are your top 3 apps on your cell phone?
Ooh, that's a good question. Credit Karma is one. It's an amazing app. Have you guys ever used it?
Not the app.
You know,
I've
I've learned some things about credit scores over the past like 6 months, and Credit Karma really allows you. It's free and allows you to keep does soft pools, and so it's free and does soft pools of Experian and TransUnion and Equifax, and just really lets you know when your different credit card companies are reporting to the bureaus, because like you really got to get the timing right. I pay my credit cards off every month, but if I didn't pay one off before they reported it and it shows I'm using 80% of my available limit, which I do often, then your score gets hit in a big way. So it really allows you to stay in tune with when they're reporting, and also if you get any inquiries that that weren't yours, it'll give you an alert to it. So that's a cool one. And then I don't know. I got to look at my phone here because I have to think of the other ones. Facebook. I don't know. Facebook, right? We're always on Facebook. Sure. Unfortunately, it eats up too much time. And then actually, Tony Robbins got a great app on here. It's just got a lot of his videos on about. It's called Breakthrough. Yeah, it's a free app. It's got a ton of free trainings on it. Tons of free videos from Tony. I like Tony's stuff a lot. And so if I'm just like in a car or something like that, or if I'm traveling and I got some downtime, I'll play one of his videos and one of his training series that's on there. So those are probably the top 3 that I use right now.
Cool.
I'll check that out.
Awesome.
All right, well, thanks for participating in the Random 6.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.